Time to make some manifolds. So if you're not up to speed, let's get you up to speed. We have a VH45DE, which is a quad cam V8 out of a Nissan Q45. We could have ran this naturally aspirated and had a ton of fun, but I thought, why not, while we're here, basically have the whole car apart. So we're just going to throw on this GT35R and make some turbo manifolds. So we're going to keep it as simple as possible and do it as quickly as possible so we can get out on the track having some fun. So far, we have the turbo solid mounted. So we just have a couple of stands running off the up pipe, which holds it in place. And fortunately, this exhaust manifold was made to shoot out the back. You can actually flip them 180 and it shot out the front. So I just cut the end off it, turned it around, shot it down. And now we have, if you can see, apologise for the lighting. So we have a 45 coming off that. This one here, and that's going to shoot over behind the up pipe and then 90 degree. Then we'll have a flex join coming up and then merge into this up pipe somewhere here. I may change that. I might actually change that. I might run the flex off here, around the up pipe and up this way, but I'll see. I wanted to run it this side, but it's going to be too close to the crank angle sensor or cam angle sensor. So that's one side. I didn't have to do much. I literally cut the end off it, turned it around, tacked it on, tacked a 45 on, tacked a 90 on, and that's basically ready to go. Let's have a look what we've got here. A bunch of 90s, short radius, long radius, and this is the driver's side. So this is the factory manifold, which I've just flipped at 180, so it has a slight kick on each port, exhaust port. It's going to help with flow, but let's face it, it doesn't need to make every ounce of power that's possible from this thing. It's going to make boost, that's all good. So we've got a 90 tacked on, straight pipe. I cut my holes on the inside, diagram them out. So that's ready to slap on so we can start making our crossover pipe. So I've got the radiator in to make sure we have clearance for that. I'm not going to run an engine fan. I'm just going to run a big thermo. So that shouldn't take up too much room. The only thing two things I don't have is, one is the alternator will run down here, and there's actually a bracket you can get online for these conversions, which is pretty cheap, but I haven't got it yet. So I just got to make as much room as possible around this area. So we'll shoot down and run along the chassis rail and then come across to meet it. One other thing that I don't have, the two things I don't have is, one is the alternator with the bracket. The other thing is the V-bands to run off the manifolds into the crossover. So what I'll probably do is tack everything together, just so the exhaust manifolds are made. Then I can pull all that out. And then after paint and during fit up, I'll work on welding my V-bands on, knowing that I'll just have to allow, 10 mil or so for that V-band to go on. So either I'll shorten one of the pipes and put the V-band on. I'm not too worried about that. So let's see how much we can get done today with this crossover pipe and get ready to make it happen. So this is also what I've just received in the mail, which is exciting. So these here are some flex exhaust tube. So it's 1.5 inch, which we'll have one on each side because the turbo is solid mounted. We need something to give. We need something to let the engine move if it wants to. So this one will go in this part of the crossover, and then on the other side it will either be straight under there or up this side before it merges into the up pipe. But we'll nut that out shortly and see which way we're going to go with it. First things first, let's tack some more bends on, and then see where these flexi joints are going to go. Okay, first part of the crossover is tacked together. Like I said, it's not going to be pretty, but it's going to work, and that's the main thing. I really wish I had the V-bands for where the crossover joins to the manifold each side, but let's just hope there's enough room and they'll fit, otherwise we'll have to modify a few things after paint and once the engine's back in. But here it is. That's it. Now the manifold 45 into 90 into this tube, a little bit bigger, doesn't matter, it sleeves nicely, so we'll weld it up, over across into flex joint. Again, tube's a little bit bigger, that's okay, we can weld it nicely both sides, and up into turbo. So now we'll work on where we're going to put our flex. I apologise for the lighting, I'll work on that one day. Better lighting, better audio, we'll get there. But we'll work out where we're going to merge this bank into this up pipe somehow. So I'm going to go and brainstorm a little, make sure there's room for the flex and how I'm going to go about it, and then I'll show you the final product. So that's all we have time for today. In saying that, this is not the end of the video, just for me today. Let's have a quick look where we got up to. So we have crossover into a couple of flexis, one on each side. There will be a V-band, this light sucks, V-band here on that joint, and a V-band over on this one. So this will be one piece, up to turbo, and then both sides, both manifolds will unbolt. So it's kind of cheating. This pipe is actually a little bit larger diameter than the flex and all the bends. So it allowed me to sleeve everything and make the angles a hell of a lot easier. It'll still look fine once it's all welded, and it'll do what it's meant to, make all the boost. By all the boost I mean probably 7 to 10 pounds, because we want to keep this thing unopened and not blow it to smithereens straight away. Version 2 might be different. We might forge it and blah blah blah, but I want to have a ton of fun in it before that happens. Alright, picking up where we left off, we have turbo solid mounted and crossover pipe made, tacked together, both manifolds tacked together, mostly welded, looking okay. Now we're going to tackle dump pipe from turbo around the strut tower down past the chassis, this area. Big fan of recycling junk, so we got this front pipe off a Cefiro, so we're going to use most of that, and then we have another 90 and 45 as well, which we can finish off. But as you can see, there's not a great deal of room there. Here's a 3-inch pipe. It does fit, but not very well. So I'm unsure if I'll use a 3-inch or I will use 2 1.5 inches to go down through there and then go back to 3. Or we might utilize this squashed pipe, because it's been squashed after bottoming out multiple times under a car. Could work in our favour, or we could throw it in the vise, squash it a little bit more. But we will tackle that bridge when we get there. Also, another beautifully cheap eBay item. We have a 38mm wastegate, I'm pretty sure. And it came with 3 springs. And I'm hoping one of them is 7 pound, because that's what we're after. But this is going to go on the exhaust housing here. About there somewhere. With the flange welded, it'll sit about here. And then the wastegate plumbing will run from here over to dump pipe, somewhere like this. So enough trying to explain things. Let's try and make it happen. Phew. I'll show you one more quick thing before I get into it, and that is the placement of this little number. I'm going to cock it, which means we're just going to loosen the screws on the front housing. Loosen the bolts on the front housing, turn it, and it's going to shoot straight into that hole. Is what I'm banking on, so let's see. Alright, by that much, may have to elongate that hole a tiny bit, but that's close enough. I'm happy with that. So that's the intercooler piping, pretty easy. On this side it'll run straight from this inlet down underneath to the intercooler. And this side, with the intake swapped, throttle body here, down through here. We'll put battery in the boot. I'm not going to worry about mocking that up before paint, because that's very simple. I'm going to actually put a hole right here. That lighting sucks. We'll get rid of this rusty old battery tray, clean this up, get it painted, and then I just have to cut a hole here, which I'm not too worried about after paint. So, all we have to do is finish mocking up this dump pipe and plumb the wastegate. And then we can rip all this out, get some colour in here, throw it all back in. Let's go. So just threw the headlight in, just holding it there, just to make sure that we're not going to hit the turbo. And we're good. I'm just going to make sure those wires aren't going to get sucked into that turbo. And there's enough room to put a little filter and enclose it, because this will be a street car, so we've got to make sure it's roadworthy. I'm actually going to remove the cartridge in the front housing, now that I know headlight fits, and we're not going to hit the front housing. So, rip this out so we can mock up all of this junk and not damage the cartridge. So I'll rip that off, we can get into it. We have a wastegate. Straight off the housing, I believe it's the best reference to bleed your boost. But anyway, it worked really well being there. So, plumbed in to dump pipe. Dump pipe is only running to here right now, so I'm going to shorten it and go in between motor and chassis. But what I'm thinking is I will ask the engineer if I can notch the chassis and strengthen it, if possible. It'll make my life a lot easier, and work out how we do it. So where we're at now is ripping everything out, manifolds off. We can start welding them properly, very carefully. I might actually call in a favour from a friend, get them on the TIG. It'll be much neater, much safer. But we can start bombing some paint on this thing. So I'm going to paint engine bay first, so we can put everything back in. So next episode, or video, whatever you want to call it, vlog, vid, clip, I will paint the engine bay. We'll have a better look at the engine. We'll have a quick look down the bores and decide how far we're going to go with it. And you'll see what colour it's going to be. I'm going with my favourite colour. Being a spray painter, a lot of you will understand this. A lot of you will think, that's silly, that's dumb, but I'm all for it. So there you have it. Turbos. fire me up, let's make some boost. V8 turbo, first V8, and it's got a turbo. Super pumped, super pumped. It's gonna rip mad skids, third and fourth gear. I'm used to second, third gear. A few of my cars, third gear were fine. Fourth gear it would slide, but you'd have to huck it. So this will just be all the torque, all the slide, all the boost, all the boogie. And you'll see the smile on my face when this thing slides. Going to be epic. See you on the next one.